Hi, Sarah here. Welcome back. So this is the Solstice Tarot tag, which was created by Krista of Auntie K's Tarot. It's essentially just picking decks for prompts, a very straightforward tarot tag. I don't celebrate Christmas or any other holidays around the season really, so I really appreciate this tag being out there. It really gives me just a basic idea of what the solstices are and what Yule might be about. The decks that I'll show here are not only answers to the Solstice Tarot prompts, but also decks that are on my winter basket. I don't usually have decks divvied out per season or per holiday. That's just not really the way that my brain works. But I have found that I've been recently gravitating towards these decks for particular reasons, and it just so happens that they line up pretty well with the Solstice Tarot tag prompts. So let's take a look at this Solstice tag, but also my winter decks. The first prompt is The Longest Night, a deck that gets you through long nights and cold days, a workhorse deck. So my pick is the Fountain Tarot. I've been drawn to this again recently because I feel like I've been wanting to reconnect with just with older decks in my collection. Decks that I know I like, decks that I know are like my favorite, but I don't use them often enough. You know, I feel like sometimes my actions don't match my words. For me, I want to make sure that if I have a deck and I say out loud that it's my favorite, I want to make sure that I can actually use it and read with it and use it, just feel connected with it. That way it stays being my favorite for a reason. I've been recently drawn to this deck again because in the past few months I've been trying really hard to use new decks in my collection and even do tarot and practice like videos and show how I do new types of readings with these decks. And I feel like lately I've just been wanting to reconnect with an old favorite. So the Fountain Tarot is definitely an old favorite, and I feel like it still holds up. It's a very classic deck, I feel. It has a very timeless feel because the art style, the art medium, I guess, this being more like oil paintings, there's a certain sort of fluidity here that I've been kind of missing in the midst of all my other decks that are usually done via digital art. I have spoken a little bit before about how I struggle with decks that have too specific of scenery. So I like that this deck is not it's not a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. It is kind of Rider-Waite-Smith based, but there's still so much openness in it that it doesn't feel like I'm looking at the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. Like the Knight of Cups typically is a person on a horse and they've got like armor, but there's no horse here. There's no armor here. Like this is so far removed from the typical like Rider-Waite-Smith Knight of Cups. I just really enjoy the interpretations and the art in this deck. So this deck feels like a workhorse deck for me. I can be in any type of mood and still want to read with this deck. I just don't feel like this deck needs any particular setting or preface or preparation for me to be able to read with it. It's a deck that the images just come to me very intuitively. The meanings, the art just comes to me very naturally, very intuitively. I actually recently used this deck in a reading. I don't celebrate Yule or the solstices too much because I never knew what they were about, but I do want to share that just yesterday, today is the day after the solstice, just yesterday I did this reading, this 5-card spread. It's a solstice spread by Tarot Bang Tarot. Essentially, I and a few tarot friends just got on voice call and we just did our own solstice spreads, and I pulled out the Fountain Tarot and I just found it really lovely. I just feel like this is a perfect deck for opening my imagination, broadening my mind. I really love this deck. I genuinely do. The next prompt is Shortest Day, a deck that shone brightly for a moment and then faded. My pick is the Dream Vision Tarot. First of all, look how shiny this is. Definitely the epitome of a shiny deck. I do feel like sometimes I don't know, man. Okay, I think sometimes I've been kind of hesitating to read with this deck because sometimes it does feel kind of Rider-Waite-Smith based. And I was just saying with the Fountain Tarot that like I've been wanting cards and imagery that aren't specifically Rider-Waite-Smith based. So with a Chariot, for example, we definitely have the classic like black and white, and we have the person in the middle. Sometimes the pictures just feel very like, I don't know, typical to me. For some reason, like I don't pull this deck out to read that often anymore. Honestly, maybe it's because I've been wanting to use other decks and read with other decks. So even though I genuinely like this deck, I just don't feel as called to read with it. But I think visually it is very stunning. And the fact that it is by an Asian creator, I do feel a little bit more connected to it. It shone very brightly to me for a little bit, and then somehow it faded. I'm not as connected to it anymore, but I still really enjoy it. I think this deck will have its time again soon. I am keeping this kind of on the side for hopefully, maybe I'll use this this winter now that I'm bringing it out in this tag. Also, I had an epiphany one time that I realized that this is one of my most or my more expensive decks. I think I paid $75 for this because it was the first edition and it had just gotten fulfilled from Kickstarter. It's kind of weird because the second edition, the later edition, is like only $40 to $50 or $60. I wonder if that subconsciously has influenced me. Like, oh my God, this is like a really expensive deck and I kind of wish I didn't pay that much for it. I don't know. I don't know if that's stopping me from actually using it. But you know what? I already have it. The money's already spent. I might as well try to use it and love it, right? But I think besides that, even though I don't always want to read with this, I do still really enjoy the imagery, even though I have decluttered other decks because I like the art and I don't read with it. Like, I know I've said that and I have decluttered other decks for that reason. Like, I still like it. I'm still connected to this one. Yeah, I'll probably bring it out in the winter time, but right now it's here. It's on the side. The third prompt is The Gift, a deck you received as a gift. And I'll also toss in an additional sub-prompt. I will also share a deck that I recently gifted. I've only been gifted 2 decks before, one Oracle and one Tarot. The one Tarot deck I have been gifted is the Somnia Tarot. This one was very generously gifted by a kind stranger on the internet. It was in a buy-sell trade group, and I was basically searching for the Somnia Tarot. Someone messaged me that they were willing to just give this up for the price of shipping. And I was very surprised because this is an indie deck and this costs like upwards of $60 US. So I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I graciously accept your generosity. And I have had such a lovely time with this deck after receiving it. I'm very grateful to this person. I have done this kind of thing before too. There are indie decks and also mass market decks that I've bought that I just feel like I don't really care about trying to make my money back. So I might as well just go gift it to other people. So I'm happy to say I have gifted a fair amount of decks throughout the past year or two, through real life tarot friends and through my main witchy Discord server. And I will also quickly mention a deck that I recently gifted. I recently gifted the Colorful Tears Tarot. This deck was fulfilled via Kickstarter earlier this year, so it's still relatively new. I used it for a daily draw challenge and I just couldn't finish the challenge. I felt kind of very disconnected with the deck and I knew I just really wasn't going to continue with it. So I recently mentioned it that I was going to declutter it, and Wesley from 22 Zines actually commented like, oh my God, I would love to have it. And I was like, Wesley, you are the perfect person to receive this deck. I would love to send it to you. So I gifted that lovely deck to Wesley. Wesley, I hope you're appreciating it and in awe over it because it is a really cool deck and I think it's totally your vibe. The fourth prompt is Storyteller, a deck that really tells stories, has a lot to say. My pick is the Child Tarot by Firefly Tarot on YouTube. This is what the box looks like. I know it's not shown around too much on YouTube, and this is what the YouTube channel is for the creator, youtube.com/c/Firefly Tarot. So this deck, the Child Tarot, I bought this year, and I've used it very sparingly, but I will say it is just delightful to look at. I don't have a lot to say about my inner child. I don't really have a strong concept of what inner child is for me personally. I think my inner teen has a lot more to say than my inner child. So funny story, my parents actually have like a lot of home videos of when I was a child, when I and my siblings were children. They used to take a lot of home videos with their camcorders. If you remember what that was back in the 90s and 2000s, their old camcorder video cameras. Once in a blue moon, when I visited home, we would pull out those home videos and just really appreciate the nostalgic moments. And I could see that through those home videos, I had a lot of life in me. There were, just so many moments when I was just silly. I was doing these things like, hey, mom, look at this. And then just do some dumb dance. Like, oh my God. Sometimes it makes me wonder, like, where has that child gone? I mean, I kind of know where she went. She grew up. She went to school. She realized that school demands like seriousness and practicality, and there's no time for fun when you're in school. There's not much time for fun and silliness when you come from an immigrant family too. When you come from an immigrant family and you're in an immigrant community and you're surrounded by people comparing their kids, and you go to a school where everyone like achieves so much, like you realize, and by you, obviously I mean me, like I realize like fun is a luxury. Like, yeah, I can have fun occasionally a little bit, but fun was not the defining part of my teenagehood, unfortunately, or my childhood, really. These pictures, like, it makes me think about childhood. It makes me think about my own childhood, but also the childhoods of maybe other people around me, how we all interacted with each other as children. And it makes me think about like what my parents may have been going through, how my parents might have seen me as a kid. It makes me imagine what like a normal childhood might have been like. And, I don't regret my childhood anymore. I actually have come to really appreciate it and enjoy it because even though, yeah, I didn't like spend my days after school playing games or playing with friends, I went to a lot of classes. And honestly, child me, teenage me loved learning. I loved being in classes and I loved being in extracurriculars. I was a theater kid. I spent a lot of time after school being a part of the theater crew. I was in things like mock trial, and I had like Chinese school and Vietnamese school, and like just I went to a lot of extracurriculars. My parents definitely worked really hard to put me through all those extra classes. So even though I didn't really do things like jump in piles of leaves, I don't know, enjoy popsicles with friends, have picnics in the park with friends. I had a cool childhood in a different way. This deck just makes me feel and think about a lot of things regarding childhood and innocence and how can I bring fun into my own life now that maybe I didn't have or I didn't care for as a child. So that's my whole ramble about this child tarot. And to bring it back to the This Is My Winter deck theme, I think that this is a wonderful deck to try to read with for winter because as I have a lot of time for self-reflection and missing the sun, I feel like I can think about what kinds of things would I like to have now that I wouldn't have as a child. I think I already mentioned that, but I just want to reiterate, like, this is a winter deck in that sense for me. The next prompt is Rebirth or Transformation. A deck you loved, its time passed, and then it returned. So my pick is the Spacious Tarot. So I also bought this deck in my first year of learning tarot, so this is a relatively old deck in my collection. One of the oldest / one of the first decks. Similar to the Fountain Tarot, I love this one. Similar to the Dream Vision Tarot, I love it, but I don't read with it enough. I really loved this deck for the first year that I had it, and then it kind of lay dormant for a while as I went on to appreciate and read with other decks. I recently tried to pull this out for a test driving tarot because I wanted to show how this deck could read on camera, and I struggled with it. I definitely struggled with it. And I was surprised that I struggled with reading this type of deck. Because I had so many profound and good readings with it. I love the simplicity of the art. I feel like similar to the Fountain Tarot, there are only just a few details in the scene for you to focus on. The art here is not so overwhelming with details and colors and imagery that I get confused, I feel like every card is very straightforward to read. There's a lot that I could look at in the card, and yet its essence is still very straightforward. But again, I haven't read with it in a long time because I've probably just been enjoying other decks and exploring other decks. I am bringing this out again for the winter though because I like the simplicity of it. I think that it's just going to be very helpful to read with as I want to reconnect with tarot, reconnect with the decks that inspired me to love tarot and to learn tarot in the first place. And the way that this transformed is I bought the expansion pack earlier this year. So the expansion pack turns this into, I want to say it's called like a Minchiate deck. So the expansion pack has all 12 of the zodiac cards. We've got Aries all the way through Pisces here. And we've got 4 like oracle cards: Curiosity, Connection, Offering, Transcendence, Spaciousness, 5 oracle type cards. And then we've got the elements as well. So these expansion cards, I feel like they help transform the deck a little bit because I am very curious about doing like maybe spreads related to each of these cards or each of these signs, these different elements. I've never understood like too deeply or thoroughly like what each card means, but I feel like with these cards as like prompts, they can help me understand a little bit better about each zodiac sign and also like the essence of each element and things like that. I'm really excited to try to develop like different spreads or just different themed readings with these cards. So I'm very excited. I think this is just going to be a really cool experience. And while we're here, let me just pull out my cards. Let's see, I'm a Taurus moon. I am an Aquarius sun. Although with the, I want to say sidereal astrology or something. I'm more of a Capricorn, but I don't know. Either is fine with me. And surprisingly, my rising, my ascendant, is actually a Leo. I didn't really think of myself as a Leo rising, but my friend recently explained to me that, like, I don't know, she explained some stuff to me about Leo rising that helped me understand it a little bit better. But that is besides the point. The point is that the Spacious Tarot has made a comeback. Hopefully it stays back. So that is the Rebirth Transformation deck. The last prompt is The Feast, a deck that's a feast for your eyes, fills you and brings you joy. My pick is none other than the Spectral World Tarot. Whoa, man. I know I've shown this like in definitely a few videos this year, and I have to say every time I do a reading with this deck, my mind just gets blown even more. Even more, dude. This is just such a feast, man. Such a feast for your eyes. I feel like there's just so much to really look at. It just makes it a very enjoyable psychedelic kind of experience. And I think it's very funny that this is in my like general winter decks basket collection plate because compared to the Fountain Tarot, like look at the Fountain Tarot. Look how simple these cards are compared to compared to the Spectral World here. I think the dichotomy is honestly pretty funny. I don't really have any food-based decks, and I just feel like this is just a visual feast. I don't have too much more to say about this that I haven't already said in like other videos. All I will say is that I'm continuing to keep working with this deck and trying to get to know the imagery more. And also just being amazed and appreciative that people can have such different art styles. This is definitely one of the most unique decks that I've ever seen, and I love it. I hope more people continue to make decks that are loud and gaudy and definitely not everybody's tastes. So yeah, dude, what a feast. What a feast. So those are not only my decks for the Solstice Tarot tag, but also the decks that are on my plate, on my to be read, on my side basket, in my side basket for the winter. I really don't have anything else to say. This was a fairly straightforward tag, and I appreciate Auntie K's Tarot for putting it out there. That's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.